the latest victim of the left's attempt to silence the right. So will she speak at UC Berkeley or not? She's here to tell us. Plus,
I actually think this may be the worst 100 days we've ever seen in a president.
shock. Democrats and the mainstream media attack as President Trump gets set to mark his first 100 days in office. Counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, is here. And later, if you were walking down an alley, who'd you rather bump into, ISIS, Kim Jong-un, or Putin?
Kim Jong-un,
Why?
because I'm Korean.
Because you could talk to him. You think you could talk him out of it? And which one would you rather have a beer with? Justice starts now. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. Now to my opening statement. America is in trouble. They are trying to silence you. A monstrous and pervasive movement is putting the First Amendment and your free speech, the most basic and fundamental tenets of our nation, at risk and in danger of extinction. And whether you're on the left or the right, free speech is essential to our democracy. The reason the country was founded, the reason people risk so much, even die, to come here. Yet, as you sit there, you are watching a silencing in real time, where people are not allowed to express their opinion if it does not align with the thinking of others. Now, this is not an esoteric or an academic discussion about one person or one campus. It's happening all over, and it's putting us on a course where we are in danger of becoming a fascist, totalitarian society where there is only one accepted point of view. No other will be tolerated, and it's time to fight back. This week, conservative Ann Coulter was disinvited from speaking at that bastion of free speech, the University of California, Berkeley. The university's excuse? Threats to Ann. Hard to believe, especially recalling that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, Iran's president, spoke at Columbia without incident. And back in February, Milo Yiannopoulos, also invited to speak, was met by mass protesters who smashed windows, set fires, threw rocks for 12 hours, causing $100,000 in damages. The number of people arrested? 1, which tells me a stand-down was ordered. No surprise, given the mayor of Berkeley, Jesse Arguin, is an Antifa, short for anti-fascist, meaning he doesn't like conservative speak. No surprise, given his support of Black Lives Matter and Berkeley being a sanctuary city. And you know I love cops and I defend them, but their excuse for one arrest? They didn't want to step in with a full-scale riot forces because it could have led to bloodshed. Really? Did you guys go to rookie school? Did anyone tell you how to take someone into custody without going into full riot gear? You can't take a snowflake in a ninja costume? Come on. And what's with these college wimps who can't bear to hear a speaker and need a safe space, a.k.a. a college playpen, because they're so traumatized by words? Instead of having a hissy fit, you ought to go find a bunker to hide in for the next 50 years because you aren't going to make it in the real world. Young people face drugs and gangs and wars and landmines and genocides, and you spoiled brats can't listen to words? You're wusses. If you don't like what someone has to say, stay home. But if you think you have the right to use violence to stop someone else from listening, you're a thug, and a dumb one at that. And if you have so much hate, why not use it in a positive way and defend innocents in the Middle East who are having their heads cut off by ISIS? And another liberal genius, Howard Dean, tweets, "Hate speech is not protected speech." Howard, Don't practice law without a license. I've got news for you. Hate speech is protected. I don't like it, but even the United States Supreme Court protects flag burning. I'm sure the punks at Berkeley have done that. And back to you, snowflakes, a little recap. Free speech is just that. Say whatever you want, except things like yelling fire in a crowded theater. Now, you do not have the right to stop someone from speaking. You do, though, have the right to not listen. And if you left-wing liberal, namby-pamby, pompous, double-talking, hypocritical anarchists want to suit yourselves up in black ninja Halloween get-ups and masks to disguise your identities like common criminals and engage in rioting, arson, trespass, damaging property, assault, and bloody fistfights to guarantee that no one is allowed to utter their free speech, then it is my pleasure to advise you that you have even more constitutional rights, as in the right to remain silent, the right to an attorney, and the right, yes, to your own playpen. Another playpen, though, a 6x6 cell that taxpayers would be happy to throw you into. But we can't guarantee that the guy next to you is even going to like you. And that's my open. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page or Twitter. Hashtag Judge Jeanine. And joining me now is conservative author Ann Coulter. All right, Ann. So, UC Berkeley, they invite you. The students invite you, and you have a date, you buy your ticket, you're all set to go, and then they disinvite you. And then what happens is, the next day they say, because they're getting all kinds of heat, because, you know, they're a taxpayer-funded university, and they're the founder, you know, or the birthplace of free speech, and they say, okay, you can come, but you can come on a day when no one's here. So what is the latest?
Right. Well, I'm still optimistic that I'm going to speak. I mean, I don't think it should be that hard to arrange. I've done it hundreds of times, gone to college campuses, spoken, taken questions, good time had by all, have a glass of wine and leave. It's not like they have to arrange for this to be done in outer space or underwater. And I would add that the California University of California Chancellor, Janet Napolitano, she used to be, you know, Obama's Secretary of Homeland Security. She had to keep the entire nation safe. I think she can keep a college campus safe.
Okay, now, when they say there's a security threat, I mean, I assume you don't buy that.
Well, no, I'm sure there is, but as you know, though as you point out, Howard Dean apparently doesn't, and none of the administrators do, you can't use the heckler's veto. There is loads of First Amendment Supreme Court law on that issue. You can't use the excuse that some people are complaining about this because that's just a ruse for viewpoint discrimination.
All right.
Only one side gets...
Yeah, they get to veto free speech. So let me ask you this.
Right.
When Milo Yiannopoulos spoke there, one person, as I said in my open, was arrested. It went on for 12 hours, $100,000 in damages. Tells me, I've been in law enforcement for 30 years, there was a stand down. Now, if there's a stand down, it tells me that campus police and city police weren't making any arrests. Now, if you were in an alley, who would you rather run up against? Kim Jong-un from Korea, someone from ISIS, or Putin?
Putin.
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 You're not afraid of Putin?
ISIS. No, not at all. You want to meet ISIS?
Street Justice still ahead. Stay with us. Justice rolls on in a moment. Welcome back to Justice. Joining me now, former speechwriter for President Richard Nixon, Ben Stein. Now, Ben, good evening. I want to talk about you for a minute.
Good evening.
All right. You are a filmmaker, an actor, a comedian, a lawyer, a speechwriter for Nixon, an economist, a cook, and a Renaissance man. So tonight, you are a man for all ages, and I'm going to ask you some questions very quickly.
Go ahead.
What do you think of the left silencing the right, or is the right the fascist group that's silencing the left?
The left are the fascist group silencing the right, and it's exactly like Goebbels and Stalin and Beria and all these very, very ultra-dictatorial people said we cannot get all the way. We need to go with argument and debate and facts. We've got to have some violence, and that is going to make our point. We seal the deal with violence. And I don't want to make everything a reductio ad Hitlerum, but the way the Nazis figured it out was to have the brown shirts go around, and if they couldn't convince the crowd with argument, they would have the brown shirts beat up their opponents. And we have a lot of that going on in America right now. The idea, especially that at Berkeley, home of Mario Savio and the free speech movement, they would not allow, or would even consider not allowing a free speech by a brilliant woman such as one we just saw,
right,
is stunning, unbelievably horrible, shocking.
Okay.
And it's happening all over. They did it to Charles Murray just recently, and he's a genius.
Yeah, and Heather McDonald. And you know what? I have to tell you, I read this
Heather
in the paper today.
Genius.
There is a group that a woman by the name of Yvette Falarka, who is a middle school teacher from Oakland, California. She said she is, quote, proud to stop conservatives even if it takes violence. She said they ask for it. They instigate us by spewing fascism. I mean, are these people nuts? It's as if they speak, if someone speaks something that they disagree with, they are entitled to use violence. Somebody ought to teach them a course in fundamental criminal law.
Well, you know what? You raised the exactly right issue. This is not about politics. It is not about law. It is about mental illness. This is just my opinion, but I think people who say things like what that lady said are mentally ill. Just my opinion. I'm not a psychiatrist. If she genuinely thinks that in America, home of the First Amendment, people should be shut down and not allowed to speak by violence, if you disagree with her, that is a sign of mental illness. Just an opinion. I think this whole idea of the left that they're allowed to shout down and shut down anyone they want to shut down and shout down because they don't agree with the principles of the ultra left and Black Lives Matter and so forth.
All right.
That is anti-mental health.
It is, and she shouldn't belong in a middle school. But anyway, I want you to look at this picture.
Frightening.
This is a photo, a piece of art in an art gallery at the University of Alaska Anchorage that depicts Captain America holding the severed head of President Trump as Hillary Clinton lays at his feet, and the Professor Chung created it as a part of a faculty art program. And they're featuring it prominently at a university. And then what we have is Paul Begala from CNN says about the picture of Sarah Palin and Kid Rock. He says that it's a picture of white trash, Mount Rushmore at the White House. I mean, how did they get away with doing and saying stuff like this? If we did this, if the right did this, I think they'd find a way to jail us.
Well, you know what is happening here. We have a large-scale breakdown of decency and mental health. What I wonder is, how do we get to a place where we used to have Franklin Delano Roosevelt versus Wendell Willkie, very fundamentally different on very, very important issues, always incredibly polite? How do we get to a position where we basically have gang warfare? It's because we have crazy people on the extreme left in America. Not all of them. Many Democrats are wonderful, fine people.
Of course.
But these people are crazy people, and they somehow get national media attention. It is absolutely terrifying. And the idea of showing this at a university art gallery is just disgusting. It might be allowed by the Constitution, but it's disgusting.
I agree. Ben Stein, thanks so much for being with us. And Street Justice still ahead tonight. Plus, Dr. Gorka is here live. And next, Panel Power. GoPAC Chairman David Avella, former Chuck Schumer aide Chris Hahn, ready to go at it. Justice rolls on in a moment.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Patty Ann Brown. President Trump announcing a big rally in Pennsylvania. That rally coming next Saturday in Harrisburg to celebrate his 100th day in office. It will be held at the same time as the White House Correspondents' Dinner. President Trump announced earlier this year he would skip that dinner, an annual event usually attended by the president. Attorney General Jeff Sessions telling a number of so-called sanctuary cities they have until June 30th to comply with federal law or lose out on federal funding. A California state Senate leader is accusing the Trump administration of basing law enforcement on principles of white supremacy. But Sessions says sanctuary policies are to blame for a rise in crime. And voting has begun in the French presidential election. Voters in overseas territories casting ballots. France itself starts in a few hours. I'm Patty Ann Brown. Now back to Judge Jeanine.
Joining me now is my all-star panel, David Avella, Republican strategist, Chris Hahn, former aide to Senator Chuck Schumer. All right, guys, interesting week this week. And I'll start with that Georgia race, that congressional race. And we've got, you know, they kept talking about Georgia 5 and Georgia 6. And since it's a Democratic race, Chris, I'll let you explain. Why do they keep saying 5 and 6?
I don't know, but all I can say is this. All I can say is this.
Because he lives in 5 and he's running in 6.
Yeah, whatever. Look, the Constitution doesn't say you got to live in the district, you got to live in the state, and that's what matters. He grew up in the district. Give him a break, okay? But I will say this. The only thing that makes Karen Handel a Republican is the R next to her name. She's a big spending liberal in her political career. She even bought herself a Lexus. She bought herself a Lexus on the government's dime. That's too much for even me, Judge.
Now, David, you see what the problem is. I asked him a question about the Democrat and where he lives, and he needs to talk about the Republican. But let's talk about the Democrat. He didn't win, and they're all in a fuss because they think he really did. Did he win or didn't he?
Blurring the lines between victory and defeat are this new way for the Democrats to cope with losing. The reality is Republicans as a collective group got more votes than the Democratic candidates got. And in any measure, that means the Democrats lost. But that's where they are. I mean, the Democratic Party right now is in a position where they have to spend lots of money, overhype their candidates, and hope their activists see it as victories and keep them fired up to stay involved in the party.
Dave, that's a seat that had a 20-plus R margin last time.
Hey, as Lou Holt says, anything more than a one-point victory is running up the score.
Look, this guy's got a very good chance to get elected. She's a very flawed candidate. I think it's going to be a very good race, and I'm interested to see what happens in the next 6 weeks. And quite frankly, a lot of what's happening on the national level will influence this race. If President Trump introduces unpopular health care in that district, it could really help the Democratic candidate.
Yes, David?
Karen Handel is going to be the next member of Congress from Georgia's 6 congressional districts, and the Democrats will be 0-2 in special elections.
So let's talk about the Democratic Unity Week. So Tom Perez comes out with Bernie Sanders, who isn't even a Democrat, Chris. He's a socialist. Yeah. And the Democrat is booed by the Sanders people. I mean, it doesn't get worse than this. Can't the Democrats figure this out? Come on, Chris.
Well, look, there is a faction within the party that is very much into purity. And I tell those people, fight as hard as you want during a primary. But when it comes to the general election, we got to hang together or we will surely hang separately. And that's why I think there's going to be more unity going forward. But some things still got to get worked out within the party.
Go ahead, David.
Oh, you know, I think this is really about Bernie Sanders trying to get to million-miler status and using the Democrats